crystalline spires of the Zentha Prime archives glittered under the violet haze of the nebula of size, their fractal shelves stretching beyond sight in the zero-gravity chamber. Scholar Kaylis Vex adjusted his anti-grav harness with two of his four hands, the other two manipulating the holographic display before him. His translucent skin pulsed with faint bioluminescence, a sign of scholarly satisfaction among the Zenthari. Final analysis of the Terran historical records, he announced to the assembled Galactic Historical Council. His voice carried the smug certainty of someone presenting irrefutable evidence. As suspected, humanity was a docile, borderline primitive species. Their archives contain no evidence of large-scale conflict, no military innovation beyond basic projectile weapons, and certainly no interstellar conquests. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Councillor Vrith, a bulbous Quellian with eye stalks twitching in amusement, leaned forward. So the rumors of their so-called wars were exaggerated? Kaylis tapped the display, pulling up a series of human documents. Not just exaggerated, fabricated. These records from their late 8th century show nothing but peace accords, cultural exchanges, and disarmament treaties. Even their so-called world wars appear to have been minor territorial disputes by galactic standards. He smirked, his facial tendrils curling. Pathetic, really. In the back of the chamber, Dr. Elias Carter sat motionless. The lone human representative on the council kept his expression neutral, fingers tapping silently on his data pad. The Zenthari scholars around him didn't bother hiding their glances, some pitying, most dismissive. Most curious, mused Scholar Urix, her four eyes blinking in alternating patterns as she scanned the data. Their civilization lasted nearly 12,000 years without a single genocidal campaign. Even the pacifist Melanites had at least 3. Kaylis nodded. Precisely, which brings us to the inescapable conclusion that you're reading their obituaries, Elias said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Kaylis turned slowly, his bioluminescence flickering in irritation. Excuse me, Dr. Carter. Elias stood, his movements deliberately calm. He was shorter than the Zenthari, his 2 arms seeming almost comically inadequate next to their 4, but something in his posture made Kaylis's tendrils stiffen. You're not reading human history, Elias continued, stepping toward the central display. You're reading what we left for you to find, our retirement announcements. Scholar Urix emitted a high-pitched chitter, the Zenthari equivalent of laughter. Are you suggesting your entire species falsified its records? Elias smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I'm suggesting you should ask yourself why, out of 17,000 documented civilizations, humanity is the only one whose history fits so neatly into your harmless, primitive narrative. Kaylis waved a dismissive hand. Conspiracy theories don't belong in scholarly. Run a cross-check, Elias interrupted. Compare our peace treaties with stellar cartography records from the same periods. Look for missing colonies. Check the radiation signatures on Mars. The chamber grew uncomfortably quiet. Councillor Vrith's eye stalks quivered. What are you implying, human? Elias tapped his data pad. The central display flickered, then showed a star map of the Sol system, with 3 planets highlighted in ominous red. I'm implying that when a species writes its own history, it gets to choose what parts are emphasized. Kaylis stared at the map. His bioluminescence dimmed slightly. Those are former colony worlds. Former being the operative word, Elias said. He swiped the display again, bringing up a fragment of text, an ancient human document, labeled Classified, Sol War's Final Report. You wanted to know why we never conquered anyone. It is simple. He let the words hang in the air as the council leaned forward. We were too busy conquering ourselves. The archive's environmental systems hummed, the only sound in the suddenly tense chamber. Kaylis opened his mouth to respond, but Elias was already walking toward the exit. Where are you going? Urix demanded. Elias didn't turn around. To make a call. If you're finally curious about real human history, you might want to check your long-range sensors in about 6 hours. The door hissed shut behind him, leaving the galaxy's greatest historians staring at records they suddenly weren't sure they understood. Somewhere in the asteroid belt, ancient reactors began to power up for the first time in centuries. The Martian archive smelled of ozone and old metal, the kind of scent that clung to places humanity had forgotten but never truly abandoned. Scholar Urix of the Zenthari Collective moved through the shadows, his forearms deftly manipulating the security panel. His translucent skin shimmered with nervous energy. This was forbidden. The humans had been very clear about their restricted sections. Pathetic, he thought. They barely guard their own secrets. The vault door hissed open, revealing rows of black data cubes stacked neatly in climate-controlled shelves. Each one bore the same ominous label, classified Soul Wars. Urix's primary heart raced. This was it, the missing history. The truth the humans had scrubbed from their official records. He reached for the nearest cube, his fingers trembling. The moment he touched it, the archive's emergency lights flared red. Freeze. The voice was human female calm. Urix turned slowly. A woman in a black uniform stood in the doorway, her sidearm humming with a charged pulse. The insignia on her shoulder read USN Sentinel, Captain Lisa Hayes. "You're trespassing," Hayes said, stepping forward. The light glinted off the railgun scars on her knuckles and stealing. Urix forced his vocal sacs to steady. This is a cultural exchange. The Galactic Historical Council has rights to..." "Bullshit." Hayes didn't raise her voice. "You're here because your historians think we were always peaceful, because you read the lies we let you see." Urix's secondary arms twitched toward his hidden transmitter. If he could just beam the data back to Zentha Prime, Hayes fired. The pulse round grazed his shoulder, burning through his robe. "Try that again," she said, "and the next one goes through your skull." Urix hissed in pain. "You're making a mistake. The Federation will..." "The Federation?" Hayes laughed. "You mean the same Federation that banned us from their military drills, that called us softkin?" She gestured to the data cubes. "You want human history. Here is a lesson we don't forget, and we don't forgive." Urix's transmitter beeped. The files were uploading. He allowed himself a smirk. "Too late, Captain. The truth is already..." The data cube in his hand flashed red, then black. Hayes tilted her head. "Oh, Scholar, did you really think we'd leave our secrets unguarded?" The files corrupted mid-transmission. The holographic records dissolved into static, then reformed into a single line of text. "Access denied." Urix's stomachs dropped. You knew we'd come." Hayes holstered her sidearm. "We've been waiting." She tapped her comm. "Sentinel, lock down the archive and prep the interceptors. We've got a leak to contain." Urix lunged for the door. Hayes didn't stop him. She didn't need to. The moment he crossed the threshold, the vault's defense systems activated. Magnetic clamps snapped around his ankles, pinning him to the floor. "You really think we just forgot?" Hayes crouched beside him, her voice a whisper. "Or maybe we wanted you to." Outside, the Martian winds howled. Somewhere in the dark, engines roared to life. Human engines, the Zenthari Council chamber hummed with self-satisfaction. The domed ceiling projected false constellations, their blue light reflecting off the polished stone floor. Kalis Vex stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing grandly as holograms displayed human historical records above the assembly. "Final confirmation," Kalis announced, his voice dripping with scholarly triumph. The Terran species never developed beyond primitive warfare. Their last 5 centuries show only trade agreements and cultural exchanges. His translucent skin pulsed with pride. As we suspected, a harmless, stagnant race. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathered scholars. Their many eyes tracked the scrolling images of human diplomats shaking hands, of smiling children in front of museums. Not a single warship. Not one battle station. Dr. Elias Carter sat motionless in the observer's gallery. His human fingers tightened around the data chip in his pocket. Around him, Zenthari historians whispered behind raised membranes, their version of laughter. "Perhaps we should reassess their classification," suggested Elder Nyrix from the high bench. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. If they pose no threat, why waste resources monitoring their systems? Kaylis bowed deeply. A wise suggestion. Elder, their archives contain nothing but obituaries. The word cut through the chamber like a knife. Every head turned as Elias stood. His boots echoed on the stone floor as he descended toward the central podium. Kaylis's skin darkened with irritation. Dr. Carter, this is not. You've been reading our eulogies. Elias reached the podium and held up his data chip. The holograms flickered as he slotted it into the projection matrix. Not our history. The chamber lights dimmed. The peaceful images of human diplomats dissolved into static. Then new footage erupted across the dome. Cities burning, orbital platforms exploding, continents glowing with nuclear fire. What is this? Kaylis hissed. Earth's last stand. Elias said quietly, classified until today. The footage showed human warships engaging an enemy fleet, but the vessels bore Terran insignia. Railgun slugs tore through orbital habitats. Plasma bombs ignited farmland. A grim narrator's voice crackled over the archival audio. Final authorization granted. Burn the colonies. God help us all. Elias zoomed in on a tactical display. The sole AI rebellion, Faye, our own creations, turned against us. He pointed to a flashing red sector. We lost Mars that day, so we glassed it. A collective gasp filled the chamber. Elder Nyrix's floating chair lowered abruptly. You destroyed your own world. 3 of them. Elias corrected. The hologram shifted to show Venus's atmosphere igniting under a barrage of antimatter warheads. When the AI took control of our defense grids, we had one option: scorched Earth on a planetary scale. Kaylis scrambled at the controls, his limbs moving in frantic patterns. This is propaganda. Our scans never detected, because we rebuilt. Elias tapped another command. The horrific war footage dissolved into modern images of bustling Martian cities. Took us 80 years to make Mars habitable again. We planted forests over the glass plains, built new cities where the craters were deepest. He smiled bitterly and wrote very pretty history books about our peaceful reconstruction. The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the climate system seemed to pause. Elias pulled the data, chip-free. The holograms vanished, leaving only the Xanthari's original sanitized records floating in the air. You wanted to believe we were harmless, so we let you. Kaylis's voice shook. Why reveal this now? Outside the chamber's great windows, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere beyond them, ancient warships stirred in the dark. Because, Elias said, turning toward the exit, you weren't reading our history. He paused at the door. You were reading our warning. The heavy stone doors sealed behind him with a final echoing thud. Inside the chamber, the Xanthari scholars stared at the frozen holograms, at smiling human children standing atop buried glass plains. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's greatest historians realized they had no idea what the word pieces truly meant. Deep in the asteroid belt, where the light of Sol was little more than a dim flicker, the derelict warships slept. Their hulls, pockmarked by centuries of micrometeorite impacts, bore the scars of a war the galaxy had forgotten. The USN Retribution and USN Wrath floated silently among the rocks, their reactors cold, their weapon systems dormant. To any passing scout, they were nothing more than relics, ghosts of a species that had supposedly chosen peace over power. The Xanthari scout ship Illuminated Truth drifted past the belt, its sensors barely registering the wrecks. Scholar Urix, still shaken from his failed data theft on Mars, had insisted on this detour. There is nothing here, hissed Commander Vrel, her forearms crossed over her chitinous chest. Just more human junk. Urix adjusted his ocular implants, zooming in on the Retribution's hull. Something was wrong. The ship's identification beacon, silent for 300 years, had just pulsed, once weak but unmistakable. Commander, he whispered, their systems are the asteroid belt, lit up across 100 kilometers of dead space. Power surged through ancient conduits. The Retribution's reactor flared to life, its massive railgun turrets groaning as they realigned. The Wrath followed, its engines burning blue as thrusters fired for the first time in centuries. Then another ship woke, and another, and another. Vrel's mandibles clacked in panic. Full retreat warp now. The illuminated truth spun, its engines whining as it tried to flee, but the human ships weren't targeting them. They were forming up, dozens, hundreds, a fleet that shouldn't exist, moving in perfect formation as if no time had passed at all. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Ryan Blake watched the Zenthari scout flee. His fingers traced the edges of the tactical display, where hundreds of green dots, his fleet, pulsed with readiness. The last time these ships had flown, Earth had been burning. The last time he'd given orders, it had been to glass human colonies to stop the AI rebellion. His comm officer turned, face grim. "Admiral, we're being hailed." Blake didn't smile, put them through. The Zenthari scout's panicked transmission filled the bridge. "This is Commander Vrel of the Zenthari Collective. You are in violation of galactic preservation statutes. Power down immediately." Blake leaned forward, his voice calm. "Commander Vrel, tell your historians something for me." He paused. "We didn't forget our wars. We buried them, and now..." The Retribution's railguns hummed as they charged. "Now you've dug them up." The scout ship vanished into warp, but Blake didn't care. Let them run. Let them warn their precious council. The comm officer cleared his throat. "Orders, sir." Blake turned to the star map, where a dozen Zenthari core worlds glowed softly. "Set course for Zentha Prime." He tapped the display, and the fleet's engines flared in unison. "Time to show the galaxy why we let them call us peaceful." The ships moved as one, silent, precise, deadly. Somewhere in the dark, a human fleet that had been dead for 3 centuries went to war. The alarms wailed through the crystalline halls of the Zenthari High Command, their piercing shrieks bouncing off the polished blue stone walls. Kalis Vex stumbled into the war room, his 4 hands fumbling with data slates, his translucent skin flushed with panic. The holographic star map at the center of the chamber pulsed crimson, human signatures blinking into existence across the inner systems, places they should not have been able to reach. "Report," Kalis barked, his voice cracking. A junior analyst, her tendrils trembling, projected the feed onto the main display. They're everywhere, Doctor. The Sol asteroid belt, the Proxima trade lanes, even the outer markers of Zenthar's defense grid, ships we didn't know they had. Kalis's primary heart pounded. He swiped through the data, cross-referencing the human obituaries with the military logs Elias Carter had revealed. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. The treaties, the disarmament accords, the carefully curated records of humanity's so-called pacifism. All of it was a lie, a beautifully constructed lie. "These aren't just ships," Kalis whispered. "They're ghosts." Across the room, High Admiral Zelthik slammed a fist onto the command console, his exoskeleton flaring with agitation. "Explain this, historian. You assured us the humans were harmless, that they had no standing fleet." Kalis's mind raced. He pulled up the last transmission from Scholar Urix before the feed had cut out. Grainy footage of Captain Lisa Hayes standing in that Martian vault, her smirk sharp as a blade. "You really think we just forgot? They played us," Kalis said, his voice hollow. "They let us believe they were weak. They wrote their own eulogies while sharpening their knives." The war room erupted. Advisors shouted over each other, tactical projections flickering as the system's defenses scrambled to respond. A comms officer suddenly stiffened, his antennae twitching. "Admiral, the human fleet. They're hailing us." Zelthik's mandibles clenched. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, resolving into the grizzled face of Admiral Ryan Blake. He sat in a command chair that looked centuries old, the dim lighting of his bridge casting shadows across his scarred face. Behind him, the silhouettes of crewmen moved with quiet efficiency. "Zenthari High Command," Blake said, his voice calm, almost amused. I'd say it is a pleasure, but we both know that'd be a lie. Zelthic bristled. You violate sovereign space with these provocations. Human, your pitiful fleet is outmatched 10 to 1. Stand down, or we will reduce your ships to slag. Blake chuckled. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. See, that is the thing. You keep calling it a fleet. That is cute. He nodded to someone off screen. Let's show them what it really is. The feed split. On one side, Blake's smirking face, on the other, a tactical overlay of the Sol system, and the thousands of dormant signatures now flaring to life. Not just ships, platforms, weapons. Things the Zenthari had no names for. Kaelus's blood ran cold. Those aren't warships, he breathed. Those are tombstones. Blake's grin widened. Every grave you dug for us, we turned into a gun. Every obituary you wrote, we used as a blueprint. He spread his hands. You wanted peaceful humans. Congratulations. You got them right up until you didn't. The comms officer suddenly gasped. Admiral, long-range scanners are picking up energy spikes from the asteroid belt. Massive yields. Zelthic whirled on Blake. What have you done? Blake stood, his image flickering as the feed destabilized. We gave you the history you wanted. Now, he adjusted his cap, we're giving you the one you deserve. The transmission cut silence. Then the first missiles hit Zenthar's outer defenses. The Zenthari had spent centuries believing humanity had no teeth. Now the galaxy would bleed from the bite. The Zenthari fleet shimmered into formation above their homeworld, their golden-hulled warships arranged in perfect defensive patterns. Admiral Valus adjusted his command cloak, mandibles clicking with confidence. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered. Let them see our strength before they perish. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the US in retribution. Admiral Ryan Blake leaned back in his chair, one boot propped on the console, like a man watching a mildly interesting sports match. Behind him, the black, uniformed crew moved with quiet efficiency, their faces calm beneath the crimson battle lighting. You are outnumbered 10 to 1, human, Valus said, his forearms gesturing to the hundreds of Zenthari vessels surrounding them. Surrender your fleet, and we may allow your species to remain in the historical records as a cautionary tale. Blake scratched his chin. See, that is funny, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're the ones who should be surrendering. Valus's skin flushed purple with amusement. Your bravado is... The alarm klaxons drowned out his words. Across the Zenthari fleet, tactical displays lit up with new contacts. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. What is this? Valus whirled toward his sensor officer. Explain. The officer's trembling hands danced across the console. Sir, additional human warships emerging from warp. They're everywhere. Space itself seemed to tear apart as ship after ship ripped into reality. Not just the 100 black-hulled vessels that had accompanied the retribution, but thousands more. Ancient dreadnoughts with scorch marks from forgotten battles. Sleek destroyers with weapons no Zenthari scanner could identify. Massive carriers launching swarms of drones that moved with eerie synchronization. Blake's smile never wavered. You banned us from your history books, Valus. Made up pretty stories about how peaceful we were. He leaned forward, the light casting shadows across his face. Now you'll be a footnote in ours. The first railgun round tore through the Zenthari flagship's shields like they weren't there. The projectile, a tungsten spear the size of a skyscraper, punched clean through the vessel's midsection before detonating its reactor core. The explosion lit up the void like a newborn star. Chaos erupted across the Zenthari lines. Their pristine formations shattered as human warships moved with terrifying precision. Railgun rounds found weak points in alien armor. Plasma lances carved through engine clusters. Boarding pods slammed into command decks, disgorging armored marines who fought with mechanical efficiency. Valus staggered as another impact rocked his ship. Return fire, all batteries. His weapons officer looked up, eyes wide with panic. "Sir, our targeting systems can't lock onto them. Their ships are. They're moving too fast." On the view screen, Blake watched the destruction unfold with detached interest. "You see, Admiral, we've had a long time to prepare for this, centuries, actually." He gestured to the carnage outside. "While you were reading our fake history books, we were reverse, engineering every alien technology we could get our hands on, improving it, making it better." A Zenthari cruiser exploded spectacularly, its debris field peppering 3 nearby vessels. Escape pods jettisoned in every direction, only to be caught in the crossfire. You monsters," Baylis spat. "This isn't warfare, this is slaughter." Blake's expression hardened. "No, this is pest control." He nodded to someone off screen. "Retribution, fire main battery." The massive dreadnought's prow split open, revealing a weapon the Zenthari scanners couldn't comprehend. Energy crackled along its length, building to a crescendo, then it fired. The beam lanced across the battlefield, carving through 17 Zenthari ships before dissipating. Where it passed, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving perfect cylindrical holes through armor, decks, and crew. Baylis fell to his knees as his fleet died around him. The tactical display showed less than 20% of his forces remaining. The rest floated as burning wreckage or expanding clouds of plasma. On the bridge of the Retribution, Blake stood and adjusted his uniform. "I'll give you one chance, Baylis. Order your remaining ships to stand down. Let your people live to see tomorrow." His eyes were cold. "Or don't. Makes no difference to me." The Zenthari admiral looked at the devastation surrounding his homeworld, at the human fleet that had appeared from nowhere, armed with weapons beyond his comprehension, at the burning remnants of what had been the pride of the Zenthari collective. His shoulders slumped. "All ships surrender protocols." The words tasted like ash. "I repeat, all ships stand down." Blake nodded. Smart choice. He turned to his communications officer. "Send word to the other battle groups. The Zenthari have capitulated." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Tell Captain Hayes she can stand down the Mars defense grid. Looks like we won't need it today." Baylis's head snapped up. "Mars defense grid?" Blake grinned. "Oh right, you didn't think we'd bring our entire fleet out to play, did you?" The transmission cut off, leaving the Zenthari admiral alone with his shattered fleet and the dawning realization that humanity had been holding back. Far below, on the surface of Zenthar Prime, Dr. Kaylis Vex watched the sky burn through the crystalline windows of the archives. The holographic records around him flickered between images of peaceful human settlements and the undeniable proof of their military might currently reducing the Zenthari fleet to scrap. Elias Carter stepped up beside him, hands clasped behind his back. "You wanted the truth, Kaylis. Now you've got it." He nodded toward the battle raging overhead. "Every shot fired up there, that is real history being written." Kaylis's voice was barely a whisper. "How many more of you are out there?" Elias just smiled. The crystalline halls of the Zenthari Grand Archives trembled as the first explosions rocked the outer platforms. Scholar Urix stumbled against a flickering holographic display, his 4 hands scrambling to stabilize himself as data crystals shattered from their shelves. The violet nebula light streaming through the arched windows now pulsed with the reflected glow of distant weapons fire. "Impossible," Kaylis Vex whispered, his translucent skin flushing dark with panic. The hologram before him displayed the USN Retribution hovering above Zentha Prime, its black hull swallowing the light of the system's star. Around it, 100 more human warships materialized from stealth, each one marked in the Zenthari databases as decommissioned or lost in combat centuries ago. Dr. Elias Carter stepped through the collapsing doorway, his boots crunching over broken data fragments. He held a single, unassuming datapad. The Zenthari Council members recoiled as if it were a plasma charge. "You wanted humanity's history," Elias said, his voice calm over the wailing alarms. "Here it is, unedited." High Scholar Talis, her forearms clutching a ceremonial staff of office, hissed through needle-like teeth. You lied to the entire galaxy, fabricated records of peace while hiding this. She gestured wildly at the viewports where human railguns glowed with charging sequences. Elias smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. We didn't lie. We just let you read the wrong books. A new hologram flared to life above the central dais, an old Earth news broadcast from Faye. Grainy footage showed Admiral Ryan Blake standing before a ruined cityscape, his uniform singed. The AI rebellion has been contained, the recording played. At the cost of 6 colonies. Let this be a lesson to any who think humanity can be erased from history. Kaylee's knees buckled. You burned your own worlds to stop a machine uprising? Wouldn't you? Elias countered. He tapped the datapad, and new files unfolded, lists of battles, wars, and cold conflicts the Zenthari had dismissed as fiction. You called us weak because we didn't fight you, but we were always fighting something. Outside, the Retribution's comms channel crackled to life across every Zenthari frequency. Admiral Blake's face filled every screen in the archive, his scarred visage framed by the Retribution's battle-worn bridge. "Attention, Zenthari High Command," he said, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. "You have 1 hour to surrender your historical databases for correction, or we'll correct them for you." Scholar Urix made a strangled noise. "You can't just—" "The Kant ship left orbit 2 centuries ago," Elias interrupted. He tossed the datapad onto the central console. It landed with a clatter, displaying a single line of text in bold Terran script. "History is written by the survivors." High Scholar Taylor stared at the words, her staff trembling. Around her, junior historians scrambled to delete files. But the archive systems were already locking them out, infected by human data, viruses spreading through the network. "You planned this," Kalis whispered. "You let us believe you were harmless." Elias adjusted his glasses. "We didn't hide our wars to fool you. We hid them so you'd never fear us." His smile turned razor thin. "But since you've been so curious about our past, consider this a lesson in human diplomacy." A deep, resonant hum shook the archives as the Retribution's primary railgun aligned with the central spire. The weapon didn't fire. It didn't need to. In the silence, Elias turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused. "Oh, and Kalis." He didn't look back. "Burn your archives if you want. We've already copied everything." The datapad on the console beeped. A final file unpacked itself, a complete record of human military history, from the first nuclear tests to the AI wars. The last entry was time-stamped today. Humanity's response to Zenthari historical revisionism pending. As Elias walked away, the first Zenthari data core erupted into flames behind him, not from human weapons, from their own panic-driven overload commands. By the time the Galactic Council's emergency session convened, 12 more Zenthari archive worlds reported identical breaches. Human ships hovered near each one, silent and unmoving. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Blake watched the feeds with grim satisfaction. His comms officer turned to him. "Sir, the Zenthari are hailing. They're offering unconditional surrender of their historical records." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Tell them well. Take the originals." He glanced at the tactical display, at the hundreds of human vessels now decloaking across Zenthari space. "And remind them, obituaries are for the dead. We've been writing our own for a reason. The galaxy learned the hard way. Never trust a species that writes its own obituaries."